I'm here with my Dash Mini rice cooker, and I am making some dried pinto beans.
Counter cooking. No kitchen, no problem.
So this is a half cup of dried pinto beans that I put in the pot of the Dash Mini rice cooker last night, and I filled it up with water because I wanted the beans to soak. So they've been soaking overnight and they've gotten nice and plump. They've absorbed a lot of the water. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to drain these beans. I'm going to rinse the beans, and then I'm going to return them to the pot with some fresh water, and we're going to cook them until they're soft. I've drained the beans and I've rinsed them off really well, and I've returned them to the pot. The reason why you want to soak and then drain and rinse dried beans is to reduce some of their phytic acid content. Phytic acid is naturally occurring in beans and also some nuts and seeds, and there's information that exists that indicates that a high phytic acid content reduces the absorption of other minerals. It also can cause digestive issues, and so that's why it's good to soak the beans and drain and rinse the soaking liquid, because you're not getting all that phytic acid. And these are the beans that I'm using. These are Brown's Best Pinto beans, and I got these at the Dollar Tree. So these were $1.25 for a bag. You get 16 ounces in this bag, so you get a whole pound of the dried pinto beans, and that usually comes out to about 2 cups of beans, and I'm using a half cup for what I'm making now. So there are the beans that have been soaked and rinsed, and now I'm just going to add some fresh water to them. I just added 1.5 cups of water, and I'm going to plug in the rice cooker, and I'm going to press cook, and I'm going to put the lid on. And I'm going to let this cook for at least an hour. I'm going to set a timer for an hour, and we'll be back to check on them. It's been 30 minutes now, and this is what's going on. So everything is pretty much nearly boiling over. Thankfully, it did not boil over. So I'm going to take the lid off and let it continue to cook without the lid. Hopefully it'll keep simmering. And I'll be back in another half hour. It's been another half hour. I put the lid back on 10 minutes ago, because what happened was most of the water evaporated when it was cooking with the lid off. And it looked like everything was starting to kind of dry out a little bit. So I put the lid back on. And even with this lower amount of water, there's a lot of splatter happening here around the rice cooker. So that is an issue that I've noticed with this rice cooker when cooking soups or something like that, that it can boil up around the lid and then splatter outside of the rice cooker. So they're still cooking, and I'm gonna taste one just to see how soft they are. Yeah, they're nice and soft. So these could be done, but I'm actually going to let them continue to cook for a short while longer. I like my beans really soft. Also, I did want to mention that many people like to put salt in their soaking water. So they soak the beans in salt water overnight. And also people like to put salt in the water that they cook the beans in. That's a personal preference. I did not add any salt. Some people like to add other ingredients like some onions, some garlic, some peppers, that kind of stuff. I made this very plain. I didn't add anything. I really just wanted to illustrate the fact that you can cook dried beans from scratch in a Dash Mini rice cooker. So I let the beans cook for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then I unplugged the rice maker, put the cover back on, and let them sit for a while just to cool off. And this is what they look like. You can see there's not much liquid left at all. And the beans are super soft. They're really nicely cooked. So what I like to do with these is I like to put them in a glass storage container. I've been using a 1-pint mason jar. Then I put them in my refrigerator. And then whenever I need beans, if I want to add some to a salad, if I'm going to eat some for breakfast, if I'm going to use them in any kind of dish or meal, then I have some already prepared in the refrigerator. Here are the beans in a mason jar. So 1/2 cup of dried beans gave us about 1 cup of cooked beans, maybe a little bit more than a cup of cooked beans. And a serving for beans is usually like half a cup of beans. So this would be 2 servings of beans. It's definitely much cheaper to make beans from scratch, like from dried beans, than buying a can of beans. Nowadays, cans of beans cost over $1, and we used about 30 cents worth of beans to make the beans here. When you buy a can of beans, you usually get 1.5 cups of beans in the can, and here we have just a little more than 1 cup of beans. So we're saving almost $1 per can, if you consider this about the size of a can, by making beans from scratch, by making dried beans, then buying canned beans. And as we saw today, it was really easy to make them in the Dash Mini Rice Cooker. So the only real limitation that I see with the Dash Mini Rice Cooker is the ability to control the temperature. Like once the beans are boiling, there's no way to turn it down to a simmer. The heat really needs to somehow be controlled by the lid, by either keeping the lid on, in which case we saw it was boiling up, almost boiling over, or taking the lid off, in which case a lot of the water evaporates and it does bring it more down to a lower simmer. I'm thinking next time maybe try to experiment with like the lid partially on, or maybe even putting some foil on top instead of the lid, maybe partially covering it with some foil. Again, it's just going to be experimentation. But let me know, have you ever cooked dried beans in your Dash Mini Rice Cooker? And what was your experience like? How many beans did you cook? I only cooked a half a cup of the dried beans right now. I didn't want to cook too many because in the past I have had issues with everything boiling over the side of the pot, making a big mess all over the counter. So let me know what your experience has been like with cooking beans in a Dash Mini Rice Cooker. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.